What is up, everybody? Thank you all for tuning in to the last episode of Quintero o Dinero. I hope all is well. I am your host, Jorge Luis Quintero. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for supporting the podcast. 72 episodes later, 2 years later, and we've hit over 10,000 streams globally. Not just from the United States, but Mexico, Peru, Chile, Colombia, Brazil. To the east, we had people from Russia tuning in, China, over 1,000 streamers from India. Shout out to Dr. Nath for putting us on the map with people from India. Europe, Italy, Spain, Germany, Belgium, and even people in the Middle East. Egypt. Don't know how that happened, but people from Egypt are tuning in. Literally every continent tuned in, even Australia. I had 4 people from Australia tuning in. So shout out to everyone in the world listening to Quintero o Dinero. It was globally. That means that someone's listening to me. Over 10,000 people are listening to me. So that's pretty cool. I want to give a second shout out to my guests that came onto the podcast and showcased their work. I mean, the guests were one of the main reasons why the podcast grew. So thank you to my guests. What a ride it has been. But just like every other book, there's got to be a chapter that ends. But a new chapter is going to be reborn. Now, before I get to that, I want to talk a little bit about Quintero Dinero and how it all started. How it started from episode 1 with one microphone to my brothers in my brother's kitchen. It was one microphone, passing it around, low quality, to being committed and dedicated to the podcast, investing time, investing money, being consistent, being disciplined. To the point where we had technology, we had better equipment, technology. To my guest, literally went from episode 1, my brothers, to episode 72 in Guanajuato, Mexico, interviewing the former president of Mexico, Presidente Vicente Fox. So shout out to Presidente Fox and the Fox team out there in Guanajuato, Mexico. To me, that was such a huge accomplishment. But it was after that episode that I knew I had to rebrand the podcast. Because when I created Quintero o Dinero, one of the biggest mistakes is that I didn't think about the branding so much. More so even the future, even interviewing a president. So after interviewing the president, I knew there had to be a change. Just like everything else, you have to change, you have to evolve, you have to innovate. And so now I introduce to you the new podcast, Master of Communications. This is going to be our logo right here. I will explain that more to you on the next episode, so be sure to tune in to episode 74 of the introduction of Masters of Communications. Master of Communications. This episode is really a thank you all for tuning into Quintero o Dinero. I learned a lot of valuable lessons on how to be a better communicator, be a better speaker, and most importantly, be a better listener. And most of all, it's inspired me to master communications. And that's the main reason why I'm changing the podcast name to Master of Communications, because I want to master communications. To add, the guests that I am inviting to the podcast, they are the masters of their craft. And when I invite them to the podcast, not only will they be showcasing their work, but you will get more factual information from someone that's more connected to the source, that has gotten their hands dirty, their feet wet, and are putting in the work. If you want to know more about Master of Communications, be sure to tune into the next episode. That is all that I have for you all. And on a final note, figure out your skills, figure out your gifts, find out your passion, and master it. That's the last message I leave for you all. Have a blessed day and keep mastering.